Good afternoon, Bitcoiners. Welcome back to BitcoinCenter live stream number 43.
Hello, hello. Welcome.
What's up, Paul?
Thanks for joining us. The world's on fire. You were on fire here a little bit before we started. You had a lot of thoughts going on about what's happening in the world today.
Yeah, we're at one of those moments where you're like, I just don't know not what to believe, but which version. There's a lot of good sounding theories out there. Everyone's monitoring the situation. I don't mean to make light of it.
I mean, if you look at all the different theories and ideas, and you make the assumption that there's a lot that is right in all those ideas and a lot that's wrong, there's somewhere there's the truth and the overlap of all of them. Might be the better way to look at it. But you know, we were talking earlier about if you frame the global conflict right now from the lens of the way you understand the mafia and the mob to work, and the way they fight for power internally, lay that kind of architecture over the global power struggle that we're seeing today, things seem to be making a little more sense, right? If you're trying to, if the boss of XYZ state is trying to become the head boss of all the mafias, then you're really looking at an internal warfare, and a lot of people are going to get hurt in that warfare. And that seems to be, essentially what's happening in the world today.
So then is the whole personal goal to just not be collateral damage? And do you even have to pay attention to what's going on? You just like
you mean as an individual?
As an individual, yeah.
I think that's all you can do. Like, how are you going to participate in this? The power projection that we're talking about is beyond the scope of any individual.
Maybe if you're trying to make decisions as an individual for yourself or your family, though, like where maybe you should stay or not stay.
Yeah, for sure.
You are trying to read what's going on. And
I mean, it's interesting how many people fled the European Union to the UAE for tax reasons, and because they thought, their capital was going to be locked up, and now all the chaos that's ensuing there.
Do you think Dubai,
like to run, sometimes to run, right? As opposed to I absolutely understand you got to run when bombs are dropping on your head. But like here in the United States, I don't think it's been time to run yet. Well, I'm not saying it's not going to happen.
Well, the United States is very different than Dubai, though. A lot of people move there to Dubai for the economic opportunity, safety, and security. And I think the perception of that might have changed drastically in the last week.
Yeah, it might have.
It just takes one drone at the world's tallest building.
Yep.
Even if it gets intercepted,
note that these high rises that are on fire have not collapsed. Unlike Building 7.
And 1 and 2.
I agree. A Building 7 supposedly collapsed just from a
fire in a trash can. Yeah. So, but if this is, truly, the beginning of the world changing, wouldn't you want to pay attention to some degree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm paying attention to it all the time, and constantly running different scenarios about what's really happening in the world, knowing full well that I by no means have any sort of complete picture. But you just constantly game plan all these different scenarios, and then as new bits of information fall into place, is one scenario looking more right than the other in any given time? It's massively confusing. It's massively scary for the world at large.
Sure. Do you think this has made a greater case for Bitcoin in terms of portability and secure self-custody?
Well, that's interesting, because we did, they were just dead cat bounces. But remember when after Venezuela, right? When we took the ships and the military over to the Middle East, there was a bunch, Monero popped, Zcash popped, all these privacy coins popped. Bitcoin had a little dead cat bounce. And it looked like, to me, if you're using those channels, that this is money trying to flee jurisdictions through private channels. But of course, I have no proof of that.
Yeah, and the sample size is small. It's like sifting tea leaves. Sure. I saw a tweet I want to pull up from Vlad. That was interesting. Vlad hosts the best podcast in Bitcoin, Vlad Costilla, has been a bit controversial lately. But he said, sometimes I feel like a fraud who advertises a revolution that never happened. Bitcoin didn't accomplish anything significant, at least not compared to the expectations everyone had more than a decade ago. The price went up, the institutions co-opted it, but we still pay with our cards. And then Eric, is it Voskuil? Voskuil. He wrote, the expectations were always absurd. I pointed this out for a decade. It's not a failure of Bitcoin. It's a failure of people to understand it. What are your thoughts on those 2 points there?
I think your time, it's time frame dependent, right? I mean, you are seeing circular economies around the world. The United States is not one. The big economies are not one of them. But I also would suspect that a country like the United States that has a functioning financial infrastructure, as much as we like to shit on it, we have credit cards, we have checking accounts, we have wires and ACH, and it functions. So, and we have tax law that says you're not going to be able to spend your Bitcoin without paying capital gains tax. So yeah, I never expected Bitcoin to rapidly become a medium of exchange in a country like the United States. But you look at Africa, the continent of Africa, and various different locations throughout the continent, different like Lugano, Prague, other areas around the world, El Salvador, where Bitcoin is being used as a currency by groups of people, Bitcoin jungle, right? There's small communities that are using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and it's coming from the grassroots up. So I think Bitcoin is fulfilling it. It's just not fulfilling it at the pace that a lot of Bitcoiners thought it would happen. And I think that's because, the largest players in the world, the sovereign capital and the global superpowers, are incentivized to maintain the current status. We're not going to just flip that overnight. It's going to take time. And I wouldn't say it's failed. I just think it's your expectation may have failed, but it is moving forward.
Perception and expectations, I think, are everything. I think, for maybe, I don't think of myself as a Bitcoin OG, but people who have been here for 10, 12 years, you would think that it would be the opposite feeling, that Bitcoin would be still blowing their mind at $68,000 amidst what could be the beginning of a major major regional outbreak that could lead to anything we don't know. And that it still seems like that would be like the view of someone who got in much later, I feel like, and who's still very much measuring Bitcoin's progress in its foreign exchange rate with the dollar.
I'm not sure if I'm following you, but when I think of the OGs, people that were here long before me that I got the opportunity to listen to because they were very active in social media early on, they were all envisioning Bitcoin as this way to flip the tables on this financial system that was oppressive, thrived in war, created chaos around the world, and extracted wealth from people. I still think that Bitcoin is built to do that, but the time frame to achieve that is much longer than what people had anticipated, especially as they keep kicking the can down the road and the fiat system continues to survive. And if the fiat system is morphing to a gold settled system for at least half of the world, if that's where we're heading, that's a step back, which I think would eventually fail when this gold settled trade, eventually somebody says, no, you're not getting your gold. And by that time, hopefully Bitcoin is priced high enough, the market cap is big enough that we start to see a transition to sovereign states, countries, global superpowers starting to do settle trade in Bitcoin. Which of course then they could move out to gold if they want to have some physical custody. But nothing has changed in regards to the benefits of trade done on Bitcoin. I just think the adoption is not coming at the pace that a lot of the OGs would have liked to have seen.
So I think the adoption has been phenomenal. And if we're building Noah's Ark or the life raft, it's gotten much bigger and stronger over the last 17 years. And I think in the last 3 years, I think that while institutionally, I think institutions have more exposure to custodian to Bitcoin, which gives them more leverage over the market price. So not your keys, not your market price of Bitcoin.
Right.
But Bitcoin as a life raft has gotten so much bigger and sturdier for you to port your wealth into.
True.
And there's less reputation risk, career risk with it as well. But the ability to port in, secure it has gotten better, all of that. So as an individual, I think it's come so much further to support individuals. And you still have an opportunity to, as an individual, to speculate and front run institutions if you want the sort of the asymmetric bet of it. But if you just want to store your wealth, it's become a better place for that, I think, or a stronger hub.
I agree. And I guess that's like phase one. You know, phase two would be medium exchange unit of account. We have pockets of that growing. And, but I think a lot has to change before that starts to take a global presence.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think
how
that's
are you going to have,
how
are you going to have medium of exchange when maybe the global ownership of Bitcoin is 1% to 3%?
Right. You can have medium exchange. You just, the incentives aren't there for most of the world. Unit of account, again, I can use that.
That doesn't mean give up on building medium of exchange. Like we need to keep building that stuff. We need to build medium of exchange. We need to build that in. We need to expand more and more circular economies living off Bitcoin. That is that fight can't stop. The building can't stop. Like, and that's why I don't like it when people say, "Oh, Bitcoin has failed," or "Bitcoin is dead." It's like it's not dead or failed. It's just your perception of how fast things are going to happen when you're fighting the largest financial infrastructure on the planet. It's going to take time.
Right.
But the fact that the way it moves virally, the way it grows according to power law, the way it is taken up naturally, bit by bit, individual by individual, is a slow and steady growth rate that eventually, once the doubling is, we're going from 1.5 trillion to 3 trillion, 3 trillion to 6 to 12, 12 to 24, right? Once those doublings compound over time, now all of a sudden you have ownership going from 3% to 6% and you get to the scale where now medium of exchange amongst, you have more peers to trade with, it'll start to happen naturally. I just think the time frame is greater than most people would have hoped. Yeah,
I agree.
Or envisioned.
Well, yeah, I think it's sort of what can Bitcoin do for me versus what can I do for Bitcoin, and so low time preference. So, all right, let's run the intro so we can get into the show here. We got a lot of exciting topics. Please hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying Bitcoin Center live stream number 43, brought to you by Byte Federal. Go bank yourself.
Let's be real, right? Praising Telegram for launching a Bitcoin wallet. I've always felt like with Haley.
Bitcoin, this digital currency that's out there that people say, oh, it might be the next big thing. What do you think?
I think it's rat poison.
Bitcoins. You never heard of them a few weeks ago? Now everybody's talking about them, but is it a currency?
I don't know. Or is it more like a stock? Or is it a tulip bulb?
Or is it
Whatever
just
debate that.
Stupid.
To me, it smells like Ponzi scheme and the greater fool theory, right?
You do like 5 minutes of freaking research.
Well, good. Thanks for coming to my set talk.
Yes.
Don't buy shitcoins. Oh man, I get that wrong. All right. Bitcoin's recent rally. Do you agree? Is crypto finally dead? Go to the next one.
Matter of fact, they're kind of in the Ethernet. What are they?
There's some rumors that it's this Japanese guy, but others say no, that he's a fake name. It was a pseudonym. I mean, you're literally putting real money onto a system that we don't even know who created it.
It will come to a bad ending.
Is this the most exciting bull run ever?
Not for me. No, it's not.
Welcome to BitcoinCenter, the fast-paced show where the debate is the story. Let's do some updates about Israel and Iran and potentially the United States. On one side is the Lindsey Graham, John Bolton types, where they are actively calling for regime change. Here is Lindsey Graham. This is just lunacy. This kind of analysis is not helpful. This kind of approach, this kind of argument, it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons at this point. This is now that we want to go all in and take out the regime. It's time for us to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen and start a new chapter in the Middle East. And that sounds good, doesn't it? But what have we learned when it comes to wars, and especially wars in the Middle East? What you draw up on a whiteboard rarely happens. What you think theoretically is going to occur, there might be unintended and unforeseen consequences, especially when you're talking about a country 2.5 times the size of Texas. It has 90 million people and was an ancient and great power with well over a dozen.
What's up? We frozen?
I think my camera probably went out. That's what I'm guessing.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did your camera overheat?
That's what I'm assuming. You just said we had a technical issue.
That's what you get for running a Charlie Kirk stream. No signal.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're back. Should we...
Put it back on cam link, see if it pops up.
Did you guys watch the clip? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, let's keep rolling.
Okay. Well, we saw half of the clip there, but I just can't tell if, this is Trump running the board, like if you were looking at risk or, like the board game of life militarily, and he's clearing the deck of all of America's perceived greatest enemies and sort of corralling China and Russia and breaking their supply chains, or if this is just more banker wars and they're all working together behind the scenes to drain civilization of all wealth. It's just really...
I don't know the answer to any of that, except that what my intuition is telling me is that this is not going to be like other Mideastern wars. This isn't going to be a forever war. This is going to escalate fast. This is my interpretation. It's going to escalate fast. It's going to get out of hand fast, maybe even regional nukes. And I think it's meant, this is just my interpretation, and I could be completely wrong, but I think it's meant to scare the globe and issue in the digital surveillance state that we have been talking about as Bitcoiners for a decade now. If you think about how 9/11 scared people and we got the Patriot Act, and if you position this as a global 9/11 to issue in a digital surveillance state, my intuition is telling me that might be what's at least one of the driving forces behind this chaos.
And by increasing its speed. I think everything you mentioned there was happening before
but
this weekend's events.
They got to 2030 to get this stuff done, right?
So they got to speed it up, I think, is what you're saying.
That's the way I feel about it.
Because this seems like ratcheting it up exponentially.
And if
a lot
if the rumors are true and you get the internet, if the internet goes down through the Middle East, if the cables through the Share Hormuz are blasted, you have water infrastructure disabled. You have, even to the extent of regional nukes or nuke being used in this war, that would scare the entire globe. It would be like bringing you right up to the brink of a global nuclear war. That would scare everybody into, okay, nobody's allowed to go anywhere in the world without a digital passport. Nobody's allowed to do a financial transaction without digital identification and surveillance. We're doing it for your own safety. We're doing it to protect you. You cannot get on the internet unless you log in with your full credentials. Everything gets surveilled. Everything gets permissioned. I'm not saying they're going to be successful, but I'm saying this could be one of the driving forces behind this kind of escalation of chaos. Because it doesn't, if you know, it.
But it has that. Do you think then it escalates from here, obviously?
I think it does.
Right. This is sort of the.
It's my interpretation that this is the
But it's not a long-lived kinetic event?
No, I don't think this is one of those like, oh, okay, we've been at war with Iran for 8 years. I think this escalates within the first, the next 3-4 months to a crescendo end that's horrific to get enough fear globally to get the compliance that they want.
Compliance, and then is it inflation and money printing as well?
Well,
like in the way COVID was a sort of
right.
Stay home, print money. There's no economic activity, but things get better because of inflation.
I mean, that would be the easy answer, right? Just be like, yeah, the print, they're going to print forever, but
this doesn't.
I've
feel
always
like that,
I've always held the option that they don't do the big print because it could impart enough pressure on people to get them to comply to what they want for a UBI check, for stable coins in your federal wallet, etc. So, I mean, if they need to kick the can down the road again, then yeah, we'll get a big print.
How much do you think this comes to the States in terms of, or how?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's a great. I've been anticipating. I think many of us in this space, right, have been anticipating an attack on the U.S. grid, attack on U.S. internet, some sort of
catalyze,
like terrorist infrastructure type attack to help catalyze us. I thought that it would come first to try and suck us into an attack, but now maybe it comes as a result of the war. But yeah, I do think we have let some people into the country that would probably be willing or interested, or maybe came here with the intention of doing that. And if we're going to see it, I think we could see it this year.
A lot of people speculated that would happen after 9/11, and we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, maybe we don't. But
much of it.
I mean, maybe we got a big enough. But I mean, even if it's just, what if it's a big financial institution that gets hacked? Or a grid that goes down and something more economic. It's like, oh, well, this is really like, we need to really rebuild. We get some sort of like, maybe we get a terrorist attack on a section of the energy grid and goes down. It's like, oh, we need to rebuild all this stuff. We need to have, maybe it's just a hack, right? Oh, the North Koreans or the Iranians hacked our energy grid and shut it down. Like any sort of thing that's going to disrupt your easy living in the United States will be cause for a rebuild. A rebuild could be printing. A rebuild would also probably be more centered around cybersecurity and therefore surveillance. Because that's their answer to security, right? It's surveillance, not real security.
Do you see any best case scenarios here that I hate to think nationalistically,
sure.
But
I mean, best case scenario, this flashes out fast, peace is discovered fast, and we move on with the GCC starting to become, like more taking more control over the Middle East and having a more peaceful relationship. But I've said this a million times. Every time I talk, like, shit doesn't get fixed until it's broken, and it may not get fixed the way you want it fixed, right?
And what do you think? We saw oil spike 9%. So some stock markets get closed. Maybe stocks are down 0.5% or percent, maybe into some of the bigger indexes here in North America. Bitcoin's holding flat, or at least maybe even bumped up a little bit. I mean, I feel like you could point to it and say, oh, wow, Bitcoin's not acting like a risk on asset in this moment.
A risk off asset, you mean?
Well, it seems to be acting like a risk off, not a risk on. But, you know, if it crashed majorly or sort of.
It also might have
already
predicted some of this chaos.
Sure, that's what I'm saying.
Early on.
I was going to also add, it could be acting as a canary in a coal mine, and the damage could have came already. It was reading future volatility. Or it could be that all this could be correlation, and none of it could be causation, and Bitcoin's just, you know, here it is. It was higher, now it's lower. It's not really.
I mean, it still seems, if you look at like Michael Howell's research on global liquidity, it still seems like it's been tracking global liquidity. And it'll be the first time, right? If this escalates, if we have a global recession due to the financial disruption, economic disruption, communication disruption, trust disruption due to this war escalates, and all that stuff starts to break, and we go into some sort of global financial crisis. This will be the first time in Bitcoin's history that's gone through that. And so I think that will be a very big test of Bitcoin and people's willingness to move toward that asset for security. So it could prove Bitcoin to be a true risk-off asset. And maybe that looks like just Bitcoin just going through a real gradual trough for the next XYZ months versus a crash, right? Or maybe it looks like shock, crash, rapid rebound without bonkers money printing. There could be a number of different ways that gives us the indication that people are saying, I need to protect what I have in something that's the most secure on the planet. And now's the right price to do that at.
Right.
I mean, there's so many variables on the chessboard right now. It's like really, really hard to make any sort of definitive decision on any of this stuff.
Yeah, it's like reading tea leaves, peeling back layers of the onion. Well, we'll talk more about Bitcoin volatility even in this next topic. Let's play the clip from astrophysicist at, I think, Harvard, Professor Stephen Pinner.
We're obviously a little bit low relative to the power law projection, but the important thing is that the power law index has been stable for a decade now. So it took a while to lock it in. It's a system that was developing, and it had, you know, you have a young child, and those are the most dangerous years, but also the high growth years, and they're volatile, you know, from the growth perspective. And it took Bitcoin about 7 years to kind of lock in and stabilize. And it had this nature from the beginning because of the way it was designed. But it wasn't absolutely certain that it would develop in that way. And fortunately for all of us who are in it, it did. It locked in, and it's been a stable, continuous scale invariant asset that manifests a power law, but also has these discrete scale invariant bubbles and troughs along the way, and I'll talk about that and show some slides on that.
And when we talk about the power law...
Was I surprised?
Oh, yeah, please.
Was I surprised? I mean, no. I mean, I think once I saw the power law, it just clicked because of the physics background. If you put it on a log-log plot and you see a straight line and you see that it's been going for 10 years, from 2009, say, price discovery in 2010 until, you know, at that time, 2019, you say, wow, that's impressive, because the R squared at 0.95, you just don't find that in finance.
And the amazing thing about the power law is that it's not a model you're trying to superimpose on top of Bitcoin, right? It's just an observation of what it's done over time, and it lines up on a log-log chart. It's a straight line, and so that's what makes it what it is, correct?
That's correct. There's a foundation for it. Actually, the foundation itself is multi-layered, and it's the way that a system like this evolves, because it is controlled from within. It has all its own rules. And an analogy would be the cell. A cell will take resources in through the cell wall, but then once those are inside the cell wall, the DNA and the RNA decides what happens. So it is self-creating, self-managing, self-regulating inside that environment. For Bitcoin, it takes in energy. It uses that for computation. So, it consumes hash rate, if you will. But once it does that, all the rules are set. The difficulty adjustment determines and provides negative feedback and regulation for the way hash rate gets applied in order to keep the blocks at 10 minutes. If you didn't keep it at 10 minutes, the network would fall apart. You would lose temporal synchronization because the hash rate has gone up, or the difficulty has gone up from 1 to 100 trillion. That's 14 orders of magnitude, right? So you needed some way to regulate the growth and stabilize it all the way. And there are other stabilization mechanisms and feedback loops. And that's why you end up
The main question I get there is one of the most interesting arguments around how Bitcoin's alive and it's like a cell and it manages and creates and replicates itself. I can't get my head around or buy into that. It's like, do you think it's regulating its own price in dollar terms because of it knows how much energy it's taking in, and there's some sort of law of nature? This power law, power law is a law of nature somehow.
Well, I think, if you, what I like to frame it, I think of the power law as the way natural systems exist. Right. So if you think of like a tree growing in nature, it's taking in resources, sun, water, nutrients from soil, and it's going to grow X amount. In a bad environment, it could actually, have a hard time growing at all. And in a fertile environment, it could grow very rapidly. So what are the inputs to Bitcoin? The inputs are energy, people's beliefs, adoption. Is it more use cases evolving? So, this is kind of like the phases of adoption that Trace Mayer pointed out early on, right? Going through these, I forget what they were called, 6 or 7
network effects,
right? So I think I agree that the power law is a great way to measure Bitcoin, but it doesn't mean that you should just anticipate that it's all inevitable. Because if you cut Bitcoin's resources off, you convince the world it's a risk. You stop printing fiat. Then you won't get the growth in the network that you had anticipated. It'll still be alive. It could still be growing. The power law can turn down. Like the power law over time can turn down. The whole band can turn down, right? And then go back up. It doesn't have to just go up constantly. So to me, I think it points to, it's a great way to measure Bitcoin. I think it's very much the most impressive model we have of Bitcoin. But we have to constantly feed and take care of the inputs, nurture the inputs to Bitcoin to make sure that it continues to thrive.
So I think about thriving. You go back to the plant example. Like some plants don't, like terrible environment, they never take off, the seed dies. Some plants, they grow too fast, and it's actually maybe not great for the plant.
And then a hurricane comes by and knocks it over. Yeah.
Right. It's not strong enough, or it just kills itself. It topples over. It just kind of feeds itself too much. Maybe like a human becomes obese or something. I mean, humans obviously can kind of self-regulate. Say, I don't want to eat too much. I want to be the healthiest version of myself. Does Bitcoin, like maybe through the hive mind, through some sort of consciousness or intelligence like AI, understand its inputs, its outputs, and say, no, I don't want to grow too fast. You're going to sound like idiots when you talk about me. I don't want more energy right now than I can handle.
I think it's the one and the only free markets on the planet. And therefore, human nature and our engagement with this protocol dictate its network effects and its growth. So we essentially, humans are the most important input to this entire system.
And if you were to project future price in dollars, which is not maybe what, it's none of this financial advice, but like, is there some sort of theory that you subscribe to that is more predictive than others if things go the way you would think? I mean, obviously things could break higher or lower based on unknown.
Well, I guess I think we price, for the most part, we're pricing Bitcoin in dollars.
Right.
So it's related to the amount of dollars in the system, just like many assets in the world, right? So global liquidity has a big impact on the price of Bitcoin. That being said, what that doesn't show you is what is the price of Bitcoin or what is the purchasing power that Bitcoin delivers. So I've always said you could see the price of Bitcoin go down, but in a deflationary crisis where the price of assets are also going down, resources are going down, then you're maintaining your purchasing power even though the price of Bitcoin is going down.
Right. Or maybe even increasing.
Maybe even increasing.
Right. There's so many vectors here and planes to look at this.
Yep. So you can't just say, okay, Bitcoin went to 125, now it's a 68, it's failed. Right? That's the measurement is not, the measurement of the price is not the failure of the network. So, and I think what power law is measuring is just, the network's growth looking like a natural growth environment.
Did you see an environment where, when I say United States government here, I mean the people who try to manage interest rates and inflation and the economy? Let's use the name Kevin Warsh, where he says, I'm not a fan of Bitcoin, but I could see Bitcoin as a canary in the coal mine or like a thermometer for the Fed, for the dollar. And I want to not managing, I'm going to steer the price with paper Bitcoin, but like I would like for the price not to go exponential.
Right.
So it shows that we're doing a good job over here.
I think that's I think that's a fair assessment, because if by some miracle this year, the US government got its debt to GDP down to 30, 40, 50%, and deficits were wiped out, and we're manufacturing in the United States and everybody's employed, and we're economically stable and growing, and we're not just compounding our debt. I think in that environment, the average person would be like, why do I need Bitcoin? Right? Whereas when debt's spiraling out of control, when we're going from crisis to crisis, they're going to keep printing money, we get more inflation, you're going to increase the adoption of Bitcoin. Right? So those are kind of the nutrients that feed the Bitcoin plant, right? And so in that regard, the way he's talking about it, if that's an accurate assessment, the way he's talking about it kind of makes sense to me, right? As like a barometer. Whoa, this thing's growing like mad, we're doing something wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And a way to sort of, but that's all a matter of perspective as well, because you could say, hey, we're doing better, Bitcoin's going down, but Bitcoin could do a 3x, and they could say, look, we printed 5x the supply of money and Bitcoin's only at 210. We think we're doing that shows we're doing great. I mean, it's how they want to read it. And it's
also, I know we're going to talk about this, but it's the same thing that they've done to gold for many, many years, right? Is every time gold would stick its head up like things aren't right, they come in and hammer it down with derivatives. And we know now that they're playing those, we have proof. We've always suspected, but we have proof now that those games have been being played. And so, this is starving the plant of nutrients. This is like every time it grows, just cut the branches off, just keep hacking at the branches, right? And hopefully Bitcoin's getting thicker and denser, and the stocks are getting thicker and denser, and eventually it's just going to burst through it. But they're actively trying to prune the growth of the network, because it is the canary in the coal mine. It's the signal to everybody, you should adopt this. And the faster people adopt this, the faster it kills the fiat system. So the war on Bitcoin never ended. The war on Bitcoin, like when Trump became president and said, congratulations, Bitcoiners, that doesn't mean the war was over. The war is Bitcoin's constantly under attack. we're going to keep fighting this war, and we have to push forward, and we have to keep nurturing this network. You're not going to get all the benefits out of Bitcoin if you just sit along the sidelines and wait for it to do something for you. It's not what you can do for or what Bitcoin can do for you. It's what can you do for Bitcoin, right?
Yep. I think when you start thinking about it that way, though, you obviously less think about the price and the exchange ratio, and you just think about it as your savings or your money.
Yeah.
And you use it when you need it, and you save it when you can. But Bitcoin companies are still under attack.
Yep.
And Bitcoiners are still under attack. Keone Rodriguez is still in prison for writing code. Let's move on to the lightning rounds. This is BitcoinCenter, episode 43, brought to you by Byte Federal. Go bank yourself. Please hit like and subscribe. Go to your local Byte Federal ATM and put your cash in there and pull out your cash
and buy some Bitcoin, baby.
And then you have the Byte Federal wallet and Byte Federal self-custody wallet.
If cash is not your thing, go ahead and download our Byte wallet, hook up your bank account, smash buy Bitcoin.
Smash buy right there on the Byte Federal.
You got it.
All right, let's go to lightning round. I think, Jane Street has been exposed, Peruvian bull. Roberto Rodriguez, next guest on Bitcoin Matrix, just wrote a great piece about this. Do you think that, let's say this is happening, and Jane Street, they are an authorized participant on the Bitcoin ETF, so they see the order flow, the deal flow. They don't have, first it was cash settled, now it's not even cash settled, it's BTC in kind, which gives them even more flexibility.
Yeah.
Do you think that they are pushing the price around?
Yeah, absolutely. I think firms like Jane Street don't really care what asset they're trading. They're just looking for opportunities that they can apply pressure and then extract profits from. And I think the Bitcoin ETF gave them a significant opportunity, and the Bitcoin treasury companies, right? Because they could lever up with derivatives on top of MicroStrategy, which is a levered Bitcoin play, right? So they have the tools in a thinly traded market with global arbitrage where they can take advantage of this system. What I think people might be conflating is this idea that like they're breaking the law. And yeah, and that's why you see them going after insider trading on the Terra Luna deal.
Yep.
Was it Terra Luna?
Terra Luna. Yep.
Right. They're going after them for insider trading. If there wasn't inside information, what they did would not necessarily be illegal, right? Like what they're doing with the Bitcoin ETF and treasury companies and spot Bitcoin, it's, as far as I can tell, not illegal, right?
No,
they are big enough to be able to push markets around and take advantage of smaller traders.
So I think that it's against their fiduciary responsibility.
Why do they have fiduciary responsibility?
I'm not saying I think people are, I think as an authorized participant.
They're trading their own money, right?
Yeah, but as an authorized participant, I think the consumer thinks that when they go to buy the Bitcoin ETF, that Bitcoin is being purchased at spot.
Right.
And I don't think that's what Jane Street is doing.
No, not at all.
Right. And so I don't think what they're doing may not be illegal.
They're buying and selling the ETF. They're buying and selling spot, and they're running derivatives contracts on top of those and across the treasury companies in order to push the market in a direction and then rip out the capital so that it'll drop so that their derivative positions will make 10 times more money. So they are manipulating markets at a large scale, but is that breaking the law?
Right. I hear what you're saying. And it might not be lawful. It might not be illegal, though. And maybe it's not moral. Maybe,
sure.
But I'm also not crying in my milk over this. What's the expression?
Right.
But because I feel like Wall Street's in the game. This is what Wall Street does.
Yep.
Not your keys, not your market price.
Yep.
Not your Wall Street price.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just have to sort of fight through this in terms of.
Well, this is what a lot of the OGs have been worried about, right? Is that why many of them were unhappy with the Wall Streetization of Bitcoin, because
but I don't think there's any way around it. Like you could,
it's Trace Mayer's network effect. You have to have financialization in order to get to the next level, but getting through that gauntlet isn't going to be comfortable.
So
like when you IPO, right? And you come out and you're up 200%, and then Wall Street fucking hammers you for 2 years before you start an uptrend again, right? Like these are common tactics, right?
It'd be interesting to measure when you say like Bitcoiners didn't want this. Maybe the earliest the Bitcoiners didn't want it, and I wonder how much wealth they have in Bitcoin. And I'm counting it in Bitcoin denominated. But new Bitcoiners, and I'm not saying not maybe the ethos, but people who are buying the ETF and buying Bitcoin since are very much comfortable with Wall Street buying Bitcoin. And I don't think it's something that we can kind of avoid.
No, I'm not saying we can avoid. I'm not saying we have to avoid. I'm not saying Wall Street shouldn't have Bitcoin. All I'm saying is that we were warned about this, right? We were warned about financialization of Bitcoin, that it wasn't going to be.
Oh, it's not going to pump your bags.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
No, they want to take your bags.
They're not going to pump your bags until their bags are full.
Right.
How do they fill their bags? They scare you to shit. Like when you're petrified and you no longer want this thing, then their bags will be full. And then the story will change and the momentum will change and everything will shift. This is the way finance has worked as long as I've seen it, as long as I've been involved in it. And the drawdowns in Bitcoin can be significant. So it's painful, which works in their favor, right? But I think somebody like Jane Street, they don't have any care whether Bitcoin succeeds or not. They're just looking at this as here's a market I can move, here's a market I could take advantage of, and I can extract wealth from.
Right. But what I found interesting about Roberto's piece was the Terra Luna collapse that wiped out 40 billion in value. And it set off a chain reaction that eventually took down Celsius, 3 Arrows, Capital, and FTX. But this all
of which were doing fraud. Celsius, I don't know about 3 Hours, but Celsius and FTX were involved in fraud.
And that this fraud was unraveled by what appears to be 250 million in drawdowns. Right. So it's incredible how little liquidity being pulled from the system.
Especially when that happened near the bottom of a bear market.
Right.
So the liquidity was super thin and they could really swing a bat.
And
but again, if they had taken advantage of this moment without the insider trading information about the structure of UST, right, and the problems that were happening at Terra Luna, if they didn't have the inside information, would they have been able to pull this big trade off? And that's where the lawsuit, from what I understand, is looking.
I'm not so certain. I'm reading this right now. You read it from like your analog mind. You're like, the lawsuit alleges that a former Terraform intern named Bryce Pratt, who joined Jane Street as a full-time employee, he established a back channel. The piece that's interesting here is, on May 7th of 2022, Terraform Labs quietly withdrew 150 million. I think quietly is an opinion here. The reason, because it says a major decentralized liquidity pool, no public announcement, just a silent pool of liquidity. 10 minutes later, a wallet linked to Jane Street withdrew 85 million from the same pool. So the big harp on 10 million, and I think there's the notion that the intern, DMs somebody. This could be automated though through machine learning or any sort of code.
Sure.
My wallet, watch your wallet.
Yep.
Withdrawal X, I withdraw Y, or X divided by 2.
Sure.
And it's 10 minutes is slow.
No, yeah, understood.
For high frequency trades. So I'm not so sure that it's even inside knowledge as much as
not be.
I know which wallet to watch.
Could be.
And so
I guess we're going to find out.
Right. But there is this sort of, then there was the coincidence of there's been this 10 a.m. slam, and that seemed to have gone away. But again, doesn't mean that it's Jane Street doing it. What if it's another firm doing it and Jane Street the news breaks about Jane Street
and they just don't want
the other firm pulls out there, a lot of assumptions here.
Yeah.
But I think all of this is par for the course in
and I don't know.
markets.
Was there anything in there about naked short selling?
I
didn't see anything about that, which goes on all the time and is supposedly illegal. Right. So there's a lot of things that happen in the trading world that are ruthless. It's a war. It's a battle. Everybody's out to make themselves money. And the only way you make money is by taking it from other people. So it's a ruthless game. There's at the end of every trade, there's one winner and there's one loser. So you've got to understand the way that system works, and it is going to be applied against Bitcoin. The only way it doesn't get applied is if everybody's in self-custody. Right. But
that's how we take
the fact that everybody is now moving into these securitized structures that hold Bitcoin on their behalf opens us up to more easily being attacked.
Right. I mean, which is all pros and cons of how you custody secure your Bitcoin, and that's personal. But I do agree with you 100% that if everyone withdrew into self-custody, we take so much, maybe not 100% of the power away.
What was Trace's deal every January one?
Proof of keys.
Proof of keys. I mean, it was such an awesome trend, and I loved it. It helped train me to every year remove my coins and get them in self-custody. And, we've lost that
ethos.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, not
I think
all
it'll
of
come
us,
back.
but a lot of especially a lot of the new people that just want. They just want exposure.
Price exposure.
Their advisor said you need some exposure, and they're not truly taking they're not taking self custody, and they don't truly.
It's not a
own
vector
Bitcoin.
for them or a notion.
Yeah. So it's but over time, the diehard, dyed-in-the-wool Bitcoiners that take coins to self-custody will accumulate more and more and more and more.
Right.
And some of those entities are going to be very, very large entities.
So, back to, we say a lot of OGs warned us about the financialization of Bitcoin, but the new Gs came with their cash.
Yeah.
And were like, buy Bitcoin for me.
Yeah.
I mean, in high fervor.
Yeah.
So for everyone poo-pooing it or saying like they weren't, I mean, like,
but
looking
also
at it objectively,
a lot of the volume in these treasury companies and ETFs were also prop trading firms that wanted to be able to move these markets in a way that they could benefit. Like they want to have spot, they want to have derivatives, they want to have all the different buckets so they can play them off of each other and extract value. And the securitization of Bitcoin has just aided in their ability to do that.
Right. All right. Let's change gears a little bit here. Let's play this Luke Broyles clip from Adopting Bitcoin Conference.
If we were to price all the Bitcoin in the world with oil, right? If we were to have Bitcoin be the unit of account with just oil, forget real estate, forget fine art, forget stocks, forget bonds, forget all fiat money, forget every other commodity or security on the planet, just oil is 1,272 satoshis for every barrel of oil. And that means, again, forgetting every other asset in the world, if you own one Bitcoin, you effectively own the oil equivalent of 78,616 barrels. If you got 10 Bitcoin, congrats, you have 780,000 barrels of oil. If you have a tenth of a Bitcoin, congrats, you got 7,800 barrels of oil, right? My point is, if this game theory accelerates, if these four nations in the next 12 months do come out and publicly acknowledge their strategic reserves, I think that we can begin to start talking about this idea of pricing oil in terms of Bitcoin, just like Putin himself described. And so my point is, it might feel like it's too late for Bitcoin because the number has gone up a lot, right? I mean, it's up, what, 20, 30% in the last few days alone, right? Like it might feel like it's too late. But just like I said at the beginning of the talk regarding Manhattan, it's actually the inverse. If anything, you're too early. If anything, you are going to be remembered as this crazy, crazy person that was somehow in Bitcoin before we started pricing at oil. Can you imagine how much purchasing power they have, right? So my encouragement is stop looking at Bitcoin in terms of random numbers, a random price, or a random number of satoshis. Think about that reality that the average person will probably have less than 50,000 satoshis if Bitcoin becomes a global medium of account, not medium of account, unit of account, medium of exchange. And think of it in terms of barrels of oil, right? Think of your Bitcoin stack And whenever you feel like I'm too late, I don't have enough, it's not worth a lot, think of it in terms of barrels of oil. How many barrels of oil do you own? So, like I said, it feels like it's too late because there's lots of people in here in Bitcoin that have been around longer than you, that have bought more Bitcoin than you, that have read more Bitcoin books and listened to more Bitcoin podcasts than you, all that stuff, right? So it might feel like you're too late, but my encouragement is right now, we disproportionately have a lot of whole coiner friends, multi-whole coiner friends, right? Disproportionately, again, we're in 1630s Manhattan. Like everyone we know is super, super early to Bitcoin. And so therefore, we're biased to think we're too late. Where actually it's the opposite. Man, this clicker. Actually, it's the opposite. So on the screen here is a visual graphic of all the people in the world. That little guy at the top left, a fraction of that guy, 1 in 1,000, is all the whole coiners. And a fraction of that fraction is all the multi-whole coiners. So I only got 1 Bitcoin. You're not too late. I only got 5 Bitcoin. You're not too late, right? This is my point. We're on the eve of nation-state adoption, right? We have less in common with the near future than the ancient past, right? For the entirety of Bitcoin's history, we've gone from 0 to 1, maybe 2 if you argue Bhutan, nation-state adopters. Okay, very soon we can have half a dozen within a year. What happens the year after that? What happens the year after that, right? So again, don't compare yourself as to quote-unquote how early I am to Bitcoin based on your peer group today and all of our friends in this room. Compare it to the graphic on.
What do you think? Do you think, I mean, is this new news? Is this?
I think this feels almost like old news in Bitcoin world.
Yeah.
To be honest, but I think it's great for orange pilling. If you're on your personal journey and you come across sort of that way of thinking, I think it sort of helps you enlarge your mindscape. For me, it still helps me remember how early we are and get optimistic and excited and bullish. But I don't think it's something we're going to do anytime soon as a society, think in Bitcoin terms. I try to think as Bitcoin is my unit of account. I think that's a superpower.
I mean, I do that often. I'll price things in Bitcoin on a chart, and then price them in dollars, and then price them in gold, and see the difference, right? And when you do that, it's very eye-opening. I think that's super important for people new to Bitcoin to hear.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, a proper way to think about Bitcoin. Like, what's the average or the median price of a home priced in Bitcoin? What's the, and how has that changed? What's the price of oil in Bitcoin? How has that changed? The price of the S&P in Bitcoin, et cetera. Price of gold in Bitcoin. That's an interesting chart, right? So these are all good ways for you to frame the true value that Bitcoin is delivering to you, as opposed to the price I paid and the price it's at today.
Yeah, I agree. Keep stacking. Stay humble, stack sats. All right, this is BitcoinCenter, brought to you by Byte Federal. Go bank yourself. Go to the Bitcoin ATM, Byte Federal Bitcoin ATM. Put some cash in and get some Bitcoin. Put it in self-custody. But, talking about sort of self-custody, maybe OpenClaw in Bitcoin. Is open source winning again? What is, Gladstein's talking about how it's changing his life, it sounds like. You tell me you're using
I'm using
AI all the time.
I'm not using OpenClaw, but we are using it. I mean, all of our developers are using Claude Code and other AI resources. I think Gladstein was very accurate in regards to what you don't want to give these open source projects like unlimited access to all your data. So you want to be careful there. But if you can build out a walled garden and bring your data into it, it's amazing what it can do. It's helped me a ton. It's helping the company a ton. And I think it's really interesting. I think it's going to be a very interesting future. Again, we have to build it. Because, if you start to look at a lot of these AI projects, they're driving stablecoins and utilizing stablecoins. So we really need to, as a community, start building with Lightning and Bitcoin in the AI infrastructure more aggressively. I think Callie has been writing about this a lot, and I think he's right. We can't just sit back and be like, "Oh, AI's here, we won," because there's a lot of developers that are incentivized to build AI with stable coins, shit coins, etc. So it's not just because AI is here, Bitcoin is one. We have to point the AI in the right direction.
I think AI is going to be part of the battle. I think AI is going to be steered away from Bitcoin. And most of AI, I still think it's going to be centralized.
Yeah, it's going to be up to the sovereign community to build tools that benefit Bitcoin. And so that we can use those tools, those AI tools on Bitcoin in a safe and sovereign fashion. So I think it has the potential to be very, very empowering for Bitcoiners. But we need to build what we want. We need to build what works for our community, not just wait
we have to build to
for
see it happen.
OpenAI to give us a stable coin AI interface,
Right.
Or X, these things are all going to get dollar stable coins, right? The only way they're going to get Bitcoin and Lightning is if we build it.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Do you think AI is all roses, though? I mean,
all roses?
I think it's part
nothing.
of the...
all technology is good and evil. Depends who's using it.
Do you think AI is going to have more of a positive impact on humanity?
I think there'll be parts of humanity that use it to significantly improve their capability, their performance, their productivity, their ability to be sovereign. And then there will be probably a larger percentage of the world that just rolls over and says, what am I going to do now? Right. I mean, what, could somebody please send me a check because I'm out of a job? You take like what Block did recently, right? Laying off half of its workforce because of AI.
Right.
Maybe 5 or 10% of those developers will go build something amazing, right? They got 7 months severance, and in that 7 months, they crank out some new AI Bitcoin related productivity tool that's amazing, and it changes the world for those that adopt it. The other 95% probably just find a job or go somewhere to go do something else, or maybe don't work in Bitcoin anymore. And that's just the way this thing's going to evolve. I think the beauty is that we're going to see such a abundance of apps now. AI is going to facilitate an explosion in applications. So stuff where it wasn't economical before to write that app because it's 1% of the globe, the Bitcoiners that want it. Now they can do that, right? And so we can get at a very low cost tools that are built for our community that before wouldn't have been built because it didn't scale to the whole globe.
Right. And so many of these tools that are built are going to be a response to some of the negative things that are built with AI that we're going to be like, we need this now to defend ourselves.
Right. Exactly. So I think it's going to be super empowering. And you just have to look for the things that are going to, you need to be aware and look for the things that are going to benefit your life and implement those things.
Yeah.
And don't adopt the rest.
I hear you. Arthur Hayes thinks the skirmish with Iran leads to money printing.
Yeah, I saw that. I read that. I love what Arthur writes. I think that's a potential outcome.
He doesn't even write too often on his financial predictions, if you will. I don't think he's batting near 100%. I think he's like maybe 20% or something like that. But I enjoy his writing. Yes. I think he's a character.
Even, what is the old saying, right? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, yeah. I mean, it's, look, we've been talking about the big print for so long. Hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means our time frame is wrong.
Right.
So we'll see.
All right. And then last topic. Let's play this clip about Citibank.
So yes, as we move into the world of 24/7 assets like Bitcoin, we definitely need 24/7 US dollar or 24/7 digital money. And all our systems and processes are also being uplifted into 24/7 support. We absolutely need that. So in some sense, we are back to the world of City never sleeps. So this is the one big idea, to make Bitcoin bankable. Later this year, Citi will be launching our infrastructure that integrates Bitcoin into traditional finance. So we're going to start with core custody and safekeeping capabilities, institutional grade key management and wallet infrastructure. So what does it actually mean to make Bitcoin bankable? 3 things. First, as we said, institutional grade custody and key management infrastructure. We also will be bringing Bitcoin into the fold of the $30 trillion of traditional assets that our clients entrust with us today. So it'll be the same framework that's applied and now brought to Bitcoin. We will be offering our clients a single service model across crypto, securities, and money. What this would mean is we will be feeding the Bitcoin positions through the same reporting channels and frameworks and tax workflows that traditional securities fold into. We've heard from our clients, like they don't want to handle wallets and keys and one-time addresses, so we will take care of those.
That was like the least friendly Bitcoin enticing talk in terms of like Bitcoiners.
It tells you exactly what's happening, right? Just like Trump said, congratulations, Bitcoiners. We got it from here. That's Citigroup saying, congratulations, Coinbase. We'll take it from here.
You've done great with your custody and your self-custody.
We got it
and
from
the way
here
you
on
handle
out.
it. But we're going to give you new institutional grade Bitcoin.
But I think it speaks to also the fact that potentially the vast majority of self-sovereign Bitcoiners that got into it for the sovereign aspects of Bitcoin and the self-custody and all the things, all the cultural things that Bitcoin provides, that adoption curve may be near an end. Meaning all of us that came here for that are in, for the most part, and are dollar cost averaging in, and or the few that have yet to be woken up to that reality. Right? We woke a bunch up in the Middle East all of a sudden. But people will continue to wake up to the sovereign benefits of Bitcoin in self-custody. But there's this whole other wave of adoption, which is Trace Mayer's financial network effect or financialization network effect, that these groups are going to now take and give people exposure to Bitcoin. So that doesn't take away any of the sovereign aspects that you retain by having it in self-custody. It doesn't take away any of those benefits. But it does show you that there's a whole new group of people adopting Bitcoin in a completely non-sovereign fashion. And they're going to take advantage of that group. And they're going to facilitate that group. We've always complained about, right? How many times have we shit on Coinbase for doing that?
Yeah.
Well, now here come the real big boys
for sure
that are going to do that.
Wow. So do you really think we're at like a major inflection point for the 21st century? Or actually 22nd?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We've been talking about this for a decade now.
Well, I mean, with this latest weekend extravaganza in Iran, and is this a major turning point? I mean, you didn't seem to say that after Venezuela.
This was outlined in the fourth turning. This has been talked about by Ray Dalio. This has been talked about by Martin Armstrong.
That's what I was going to bring. Martin Armstrong, Larry Johnson.
Everybody that has been covering these big global macro shifts have been talking about this point in history coming. It's here. We're in the middle of it.
So it almost feels like a simulation in the way that like it's been just a slow train wreck towards this.
Yeah, because in
the sense that every American administration has looked to Iran and as for this to happen, I think, and everyone is more like everyone with common sense has been like, just don't do this,
right?
And you try to take yourself out of it as an American. I mean, Persia's a beautiful civilization. It's a historic, ancient civilization. I'm not familiar intimately with the regime. I know what I see in the news, but time and time again, America's tried to do regime change, and it's not gone the way we've hoped. So it just feels like a slow train wreck from that perspective of, here we go again.
Or is it what? So I just had Efrat on our podcast and Monica, and Efrat talked about us being right now. This is before the war, but being in the middle of the eye of the hurricane. And now we're maybe hitting the outer wall again, and we're going to get the strong winds again. And so if this is something, right, the regime change in Iran has been on the chessboard for decades.
Right.
But if you look at it from the view of all this stuff that the WEF wanted implemented, the Palantir wants implemented, that the digital control system wants implemented, if the goal is to get that done by 2030, it's like they are running out of time to create the environment where they can push that on the people. I'm hopeful that a good portion of the world will stand up and say, no, we're not going to accept this. We're not going to participate in this digital farm as the animals that are fenced. That's where we just have to stand up and say, no, we're not strong enough to stop wars and to stop missiles from flying, but we each as individuals are strong enough to say, no, we don't accept what you're offering. And I want to go a different way. I'm going to be as sovereign as I can as an individual. I'm going to have my sovereign money. I'm going to have my sovereign communications. I'm going to have my food sources. I'm going to have my water sources. I'm going to try and move to a jurisdiction where those kind of values are supported as opposed to beat out of you. And those are all the decisions that individuals are making. And I just think the early Bitcoiners were the first ones to see these threats and the first ones to take action. And there'll be many more people waking up to having to make that decision, whether it's forced on them or not. But I think that's all the decision all of us as individuals are going to have to make over the next few years, because it's going to be a full court press to get the new system, the reset system that they want in place. And it's right? If you want to know who the they are, right? Go listen to Simon Dixon, listen to Tom Luongo, listen to Martin Armstrong, listen to all these guys that are doing a really good job of describing the they. And it's not specifically like they're all aligned with an agenda. That's why I like to think of them as like the mob and the mafia at war with each other of who's going to be in charge of this new system. And we, as the civilians on the street, when we see that black Cadillac pull up and guys jump out with guns, we got to get the fuck out of the way, right? Like that's all we can do until this. And then once this is reset, then we can stand up and say, no, I'm not going to participate in it. I'm going a whole different route.
Right. I feel like the boot's going to come down. And I want to be living a life where I'm not worried about scurrying at the last minute.
Yep.
Like I already know the boot's coming down and just get out of the way now.
Right. Which is what we've been trying to preach for several years in the Bitcoin community about, like this is coming. I remember in 2017 talking to people about CBDCs and they were like, well, you're fucking out of your mind. Like, what are you even talking about? It's taken a lot longer to get here than I thought it would. That's my personal misconception. But if you look at this from the 2030 agenda and you look at everything that the WEF wanted to have imparted, and now you look at warring tribes trying to get their own version of that kind of control structure in place, that's maybe painting a very misty picture of what may be going on.
Yeah. All right. Well,
And I look forward to being proven wrong because I'd like nothing better for all of us to just be safe and happy.
Yeah, of course. Well, we're all doing the best we can. Stay humble, stack sats, and be safe and happy, hopefully. Be local. Think local.
Yep.
Or act local. There's been another great show as always, Paul.
Thank you.
This is brought to you by Byte Federal. Go bank yourself. Go to Byte Federal ATM. Buy Bitcoin. Use the Byte Federal app. You can use
when you get in the App Store, you'll see Byte Wallet and Byte Vault. Byte Vault is non-custodial. You hold your own keys. That's your storage locker. Byte Wallet is where you connect your checking account and buy your coins. Smash buy. When you get a big enough balance, move it to self-custody.
Go bank yourself. That's another thing watching bankers talk about, banking Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Go bank yourself.
Bank yourself, people.
Bank the unbanked.
You've been empowered. It's your choice to choose it.
I hear you. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat. If not, we can roll out.
We don't.
All right.
Peace, everybody.
Peace, everybody. See you next week.
Bye-bye. What do you hear?